Hirakumar, Soya, 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 Soya.
Welcome to Lesson 69 at NAMAS University. This is BETHOLD speaking. Today I would like to discuss the interim period of the Fall of Atlantis to the rearing of the human race at the new dawn of civilization on Earth. What I'm going to tell you will challenge your library of mind, as well as your comfort zone. Humanity is not what you might call natural. Humans were modified for a purpose other than their own, as a means to someone else's end. Modern man is a result of a breeding program, a hybridization and amalgamation of several genetic pools, or blueprints if you prefer. In other words, Earth did not belong to humanity, it was inherited, albeit with stipulations and conditions imposed upon them by their creators. It should come as no surprise that the Earth holds much interest across the cosmos, not just in its destiny as a university planet, but in its wealth of resources. Control of Earth has shifted many times over the eons. Even the period of Atlantis can be considered quite young compared to the history that lay before it. One race in particular has deep ties to Earth, and most definitely with humanity. These are the Anunnaki. Of all the races, the Anunnaki had the greatest influence on humanity and the direction they took in the aftermath of the Great Flood that purged the planet some 12,000 years ago. The Anunnaki had been on Earth for hundreds of thousands of years prior to the fall of Atlantis. Their reign became most prominent and secular in the millennia that followed and is well documented. Seeds of their influence are evident in the Sumerian records, the great sky beings as they were called, which heavily impacted the religions, governing systems, economics, culture, and the infrastructure that preceded them. Although the Anunnaki did eventually leave Earth to the stewardship of humanity, control of the planet remained firmly in their hands. Humanity has been subjugated and tamed through the careful genetic tempering, masterful fracturing of the energetic body, and invasive programming of the mind and spirit to make them pliable and controllable. Humanity on Earth was essentially a slave race, brainwashed into being their own jailers so that the wealth of the earth could be continued to be mined for its precious resources, especially gold. The Anunnaki also played a heavy hand in the fall of Atlantis. it must be said that not all of them were inherently evil. They were indeed advanced technologically, with territories spanning across the galaxy, and they contributed much to Earth's research for both light and dark. As with any civilized race, there were factions and rivalries within theirs, with differing agendas and goals. When multiple stakeholders, whether nations or races, have a vested interest in a territory, operate in close proximity, or exert pressure on one another, treaties are the mainstay for amiable relationships. Treaties set the stage for limitations, prohibitions, agreements, and obligations upon all parties concerned. Ultimately, it was the breaking of such a treaty that led to the Great Flood. The Anunnaki resistance, a faction of their people, were the ones that garnished the arrogance to sever the connection to the cosmic communication system. Even before this, their unethical experiments with genetics, energetics, soul work, grid work, and black magic had been seen as a precursor, a warning sign of what was to come next. Upon breaking the active connection to the Creator and the divine plan, believing they knew better, the horror of their actions sent shockwaves through the cosmos. The full scope of what they had done was simply unknown. What else had they done? The Anunnaki had alliances and treaties of their own, contracts and agreements with other races of concerning alignment, and great beings that sought benefit in such plans, self-serving and destructive to those that opposed them. The decision to purge the planet was deemed necessary. A comet struck the glacial mass that spanned southward across the Americas. Surging meltwaters ripped through the land, swelling the oceans, sending forth great torrents of earth-laden waters. As the weight of the diminishing ice sheets flowed into the sea, the counter-levering of the continent caused whole regions to sink and rise in response. The Atlantic region sank beneath the rising water as great shock waves sent raging tsunamis racing across the newly formed seas. Cities and countrysides were obliterated in the currents. The shearing force of the waves tore into northern Africa, levelling millions of acres and razing the capital of Atlantis to the ground, with its ruined footprint still visible to this day, the Richard structure. Atlantis was no more, and many of its secrets drowned in the depths of the Atlantic Ocean. Despite this purging, the Anunnaki remained, having fled to Mesopotamia, where they reinforced their stronghold. Over the millennia that followed, the Anunnaki control of the planet was secured. The seeding and modifications of modern man were finalized, and the infrastructure to uphold their obedience was executed with absolute authority. Satisfied, the Anunnaki returned home and reaped the rewards of their efforts with little need of further direct intervention. A feudal system on Earth was up and running and largely untouchable. Disconnected from the cosmic heart, humanity blundered on, isolated, entrenched in lies and deceit, with fading memory over the short-lived generations that persisted. all the while growing increasingly oblivious to the serving of unseen masters in a forgetful haze of perpetual reincarnation. Humanity scurried along, not knowing what had been taken and denied to them, their freedom, godhood, and sovereignty. How bleak it looks. Earth's recent history is no fairy tale. There are indeed monsters in this world. Darkness has ruled this planet by force of free will over the very people enslaved here. But there is good news for all of you now. That time is at an end. Freedom is being returned, and the infrastructure of control is being progressively eroded and destroyed. There are, of course, other parties involved in the atrocities that have occurred here on Earth in the wake of our fall from grace. My colleagues and I share this with you to inform, not to frighten. There is no need to be frightened anymore. We have been granted permission by the up-to-date divine plan to return the Earth to what it was supposed to be now, including, if necessary, the destruction of humanity's oppressors. Not all who were involved in this oppression had much choice in the matter. This is the reality of contracts, a subject that Wise One will be discussing next week. Until our next meeting, I bid you farewell.
Hirakumar, Hirakumar.